Hi everyone, my name is VAYS. I come from the traditional Wall Street background. My first job was at Bear Stearns about a year and a half before that investment bank went down. Joined the crypto scene around 2013, 2014, started speaking at conferences, writing articles. I now run a pretty popular YouTube channel just under my name, VAYS, and traveling the world trying to explain what Bitcoin is, what a blockchain is, and really enjoying this ecosystem even today with the current prices.
Hi everyone, great to be here this morning. It's really nice to see a packed room. It's very uncommon now at crypto conferences because we're in a bear market, so thank you all for being here. So my name is LIPPENCOTT. I co-founded ZenCash in 2017, which is a privacy protocol. And then recently I started working for a proprietary VC that is now starting a proprietary quant fund in crypto. We're based in Hong Kong and the Netherlands.
Hey, good morning guys. Thank you everybody for being here. My name is Cal Evans. I'm the founder and managing consultant of Gresham International. We're a legal and compliance firm with offices in the United States and the European Union. I myself have consulted with a number of governments, Government of Estonia, Government of Dubai. I'm a board member of the British Blockchain Association. I also write, I speak, obviously, and I'm just generally very enthusiastic about the crypto scene and the crypto world, even in the current market.
Hello everyone, this is Eric Chung from South Korea, and actually I'm the co-founder of VisionCreator. VisionCreator is kind of like a digital asset focused group. Under our group we have 4 business departments. For example, BCI, the crypto fund that I run right now, and then Chainers, which is a service provider for projects to come to expand their business or in Korean market. And XR is a system marketing trading team based in New York, and WeChain is a research center based in Shanghai. So we pretty much have a full range of services and investment arms in our company. That's it.
And finally myself, my name is Han Kao. I am the founder, CEO of CryptoBriefing. We are a crypto media and blockchain research company. So before we start talking about going beyond ICOs, let's take a quick look at what happened, how we got here. What are some of the factors that precipitated to the downfall of the ICO, and maybe some lessons learned. This question is open for anyone, if anyone wants to take it.
I mean, I can start. So I don't think many lessons were learned. And I wasn't able to, I'm a trader, and again, I come from Wall Street, and I never understood how back in the year 2000, back in 1999, how were these companies that all they had was a website, no clients, no developers, just a fancy website, and these companies were trading for $100 a share on the NASDAQ, and then it all came crashing down. It took 15 years for the NASDAQ to recover financially. Meanwhile, the internet was just being used and used and used. Never understood how people got into this groupthink and irrational exuberance of buying into this stuff until I was smack in the middle of this ecosystem. To me, Bitcoin was something revolutionary. It was a way to separate money from government intervention and give people freedom with the way they can spend their own value transfer. And somehow, everyone around us just wanted to print their own money, and everybody else started to believe in that. The ICOs were not revolutionary. It was just a way to get around the regulatory space, and the regulation is finally catching up. I was very critical of the Ethereum ICO, and I thought it would only lead to something bad. And now I guess other people are somewhat starting to realize it. So I was on the other side of it. I was warning people the whole way up and the whole way down, and I continue to do so.
So I think there are a lot of ways to look at ICOs. I think Toad's point is definitely valid that a lot of founders unfortunately just went for the money grab without solving any hard problems first. And so they're certainly now not lasting through this market. But forgetting for a second about the way that they actually raised money, even the projects that just in airdrop, for example, or raised equity back in 2017, early 2018, because there were some of those, I think they still never really figured out how blockchain applied to their business and how to create token economies that are actually sustainable. I think there are a lot of paradigms that were pretty easy to digest, but were provably untrue. Like the idea that the more people buy your coin, the more the price will increase. Like that's not necessarily true. There are a lot of factors such as momentum and volume across your protocol or across Ethereum, the DApp that you're working in. And so I think there's a lot of work that still has to be done and kind of the fundamental building blocks for any altcoin project before we're going to see real businesses that should be VC-backed that are built on blockchain and incorporate blockchain. The only reason I'm kind of a big fan of ICOs, and I think eventually there will be a place for them, is because I like the idea that retail investors can get involved.
Thank you, Jane. Makes a lot of sense. Cal, yeah.
Yes, sure. I think, just playing devil's advocate on the panel, I think I've always been a big advocate of ICOs. I think they enable companies with revolutionary ideas to get funding to access. And I think what we've seen actually is more of a maturity around the ICO. And for those of you that have heard me speak before, sorry by the way, I've spoken frequently about how from a legislative standpoint we've seen that actually the smaller operators have had to become innovative first, which is why we're seeing laws coming out of smaller countries such as Malta, Estonia, and it's not being dealt with, as an example, in Europe at the European Union level. Whereas if we look at other financial instruments, the bigger countries, the bigger organizations will take the lead and make the laws first. So what's happening is we're actually at a point where the legislature in the larger jurisdictions are catching up. So that's having a bigger impact on the market, especially the ICO market. And now, of course, consequently, we've seen different evolutions of that. We've seen the TGE, the STO, various different models that have come about. So I think it's a bit of market maturity that's happening.
I'm sorry, can you just elaborate a little bit on what revolutionary ideas you have seen from the ICO space? Because I haven't seen any. All I've seen is a way to solicit funds from unqualified investors.
You haven't seen any revolutionary ideas in the ICO space?
Zero. Ethereum is as close as we got, and it's just a platform for other people to create securities. Bitcoin is actually revolutionary. I think that word is very misplaced. There's not that much revolutionary things. I mean, Airbnb and Uber have done well, but again, it's not that revolutionary. It's just like a way to pick up people in cars. I haven't seen anything revolutionary. I think that word is grossly misused.
So, I mean, the revolutionary expression comes from the fact that companies that are designing revolutionary things don't have to go through the atypical financing round. They may not need as much money, so they may not be in a position where they need to enter a situation where they're filing some kind of regulation in the United States or regulation in Europe. What it means is actually, look, I've got this opportunity to raise money and I can do it by allowing people to participate in my organization. The biggest problem that we see from atypical finance models is that bigger VC guys come in, finance houses, and I'm aware of the other panel members here, and they will typically look to take a large percentage of the company for very little input. And what the ICO did was that turned it on its head and it said, look, I can still control 100% of my company and get the money I need to do it while actually giving something to people that may help them out on the way. That in and itself is revolutionary.
But is there a single company that has been successful in doing that? In actually building a product and bringing it to market?
I think what's...
Yeah, there are people in this audience here that have had revolutionary things that they've developed.
So I think let's talk about some of the good things that's come out of ICOs.
Yeah,
I'm sure to jump the gun.
It's very interesting to hear your conversation. Anyway, so two gentlemen and one lady already talked about the ICO market conceptually. So I just wanted to probably people might be very have a question about how really is the ICO market right now? How it does look like? So I can give you the numbers in Korea. So I'm from South Korea, so I can give you the numbers from South Korea market. So actually, until from January to this October, Korean market there were 72 ICO projects. they raised funds. And actually, out of 72, we could only catch around 40 projects that really revealed their raised fund amount. And out of 40, there were only 8 projects. They raised more than $30 million, and including the 8, probably 12 projects. They have more than $10 million fundraise. And more interestingly is that after the raised funds, actually no single project has actually released their actual product, like Mr. Tan mentioned. So the reason the market is crashing right now is because they raised tons of amount of money only this year until October, but there is no single product in the market that is actually used investors, the crypto investors can use in the market. So that's the reason people are leaving the market right now. So probably it might be the next question. How can we how can the market will?
I really like the concept of the ICO, right? So aligning investors with projects, with customers. That's something that you can't do with traditional stocks and equities. I think in theory it's a very, very interesting concept, but let's talk about some of the good things that's come out of this, and if there has been any good things that's come out of this last 12 months or 18 months, and how has this potentially have changed the traditional landscape of investing?
Just to talk for a second about some of the good things that have come out of the past couple of months, not necessarily that have come out of the concept of ICOs in general. I think because many projects, like you were mentioning, I know for a fact that a bunch of those Korean projects actually either didn't ever sell their ETH that they raised, or they smash sold it at really, really low prices. And so these $30 million, just say that they raised, maybe turned into 6 to something like that. And so the likelihood that they will actually have working products and businesses with the capital that they now have sitting in the reserves is not super high. And I think anyone who's invested in these projects knows that, and that's also why the market is drying up, especially speaking as a fund. We are now thinking about other ways that we can support entrepreneurs in the ecosystem, and definitely looking at increasing the strenuousness of our due diligence process. But I think over the past 6 months, people are really starting to get their shit together. I think that founders are finally thinking about things that are very unique to crypto. For example, they actually have to understand markets. They need to understand how to negotiate with liquidity providers, with market makers, with treasury management services. These are not things that they can neglect, because most of them end up initially having reserves that are entirely in highly volatile, risky assets. And so I'm excited to see how some of the institutional players and people who have real experience in finance, and also just generally in startups, can really add some value to the crypto space, and hopefully we'll see kind of a new emergence of really quality companies over the next year. And also, just really quickly, I would say it's important we take a look at the coins that raised earlier than this craze, so before 2017, or before the end of 2017, because a lot of them are releasing product now. And although I haven't seen anything revolutionary, it is pretty exciting that some people are still hard at work.
Fair point. I can tell you've done this before. Thank you, Jane. Anyone else?
I can always comment. I have not seen anything revolutionary about separating unqualified investors from their money. VCs can barely beat the returns of the S&P 500, and it's their job to find profitable companies to invest in, and they can barely beat. For example, if you're a rich person and you give your money to a VC, you're probably going to lose more money over the course of your investment than you're going to make it. And this concept that the average person that has a job or has the ability to pick out winners and losers in a brand new industry they don't understand, in speculative companies, people always say, hey, what if you had the opportunity to invest in Facebook before it went IPO? You would have lost all your money in MySpace or Friendster or God knows any of the other 20 or 30 social media platforms. you don't have the money to invest in them all, and there's no way you have the ability to pick winners and losers. The reason why the VCs want to get a piece of the company they invest in is because they want actually to get something in return. Most of the people that invested in these ICOs, they lost a lot more money than they've made. A few people were able to get out at the top. I do see revolutionary, not revolutionary, but Bitcoin is revolutionary. I do see a lot of good that has come out of the Bitcoin space. The energy consumption. A lot of people talk bad about the mining infrastructure of Bitcoin. It wastes so much electricity, and they try to demonize Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin mining is going to revolutionize the way we gather renewable energy. I think it's going to revolutionize the way energy is being processed. I think the chip manufacturers are going to revolutionize the way we process information in computers. I think there's lots of good coming out of it. The whole concept of separating money from the control of government is also going to be amazing when people can actually save in a way that can't be confiscated by their governments, the way it happened in Cyprus, the way things happened in Greece when their bank accounts were shut down. Just transferring money cross borders to yourself, to your friends and family in a way that isn't stoppable. I mean, that's what's actually going to change the world. Being able to solicit money from unqualified investors, I think that's going to go away. People are going to wise up, and it's going to go back to the way it used to be as far as trying to finance your company. Like just one quick note, like if your distant cousin that you know has never achieved anything comes to you and asks you for a bunch of money for him to start his company, you would laugh and not give it to him, but yet you're going out and buying somebody else's ICO. That cousin of yours probably knows what he's doing better.
Thank you, Tony. I know your answer to this. I'd love to hear from everyone else. Are ICOs dead?
Actually, can I add some more comments?
Please.
So actually, I really agree on Chan's comments. And actually, one thing that I want to add on is that actually, I actually really hate to talk about like blockchain industry. Actually, I don't think there is a blockchain industry. Actually, this is just a startup industry that the projects or companies are using the blockchain technology in their business model. So in that sense, actually, we need to like evaluate the projects or the companies with the traditional like investment evaluation models. Like how will the industry size will be, or how much market they can touch, and most of the projects they are like when they approach it to the funds, they are saying that our token economy will be billions of dollars of the economy, but there is no such things because actually the amount of the source of the value, the total value of the money is actually like it doesn't change that much, and if the market is really like all the projects has $1 billion of the economy, then the market would be like much larger than as it is right now. So I would like to recommend people to like evaluate the projects when normal investors or the traditional investors, and when they evaluate the projects, please consider the like traditional way of evaluating the valuation.
Thank you, Eric. I'd love to get a quick show of hands from everyone in the audience right now. How many people here thinks that ICOs are dead and they're not coming back? Okay. Interesting. So we have a pretty small minority. Interesting. So if they're not dead, I'm assuming they may come back. In what form do you think they'll be coming back in?
I mean, we're seeing a move now toward the STO model. I use this expression, I think it's market maturity. I think what we're seeing here is the maturing of the ICO function. I don't believe that anybody has ever proclaimed that undertaking an ICO is guaranteed success. There is no, in the startup world, there is no guarantee of success, whether you're utilizing the VC model, convertible notes, whatever option you choose to take, there's no guarantee. And actually, the statistics of the numbers of startups that succeed are fundamentally minimal. So there is no surprise here that 2 years later, people are sitting there going, you know what, I can't think of a project that works, when actually, there's nothing new in that sentiment. Like we've discussed, the number of social media sites that have died, the number of websites and companies that began life with fantastic funding that didn't succeed. It's not a surprise that companies didn't work because there needs to be nosebleeds in order to get the fantastic technology, the fantastic ideas to come through and to pioneer. But in this instance, what's going to happen to ICO, what's going to happen as things mature is as that market is maturing, blood has been spilled, nosebleeds have happened, and people are learning that actually everything isn't a success, that people will become more reserved. And whereas you guys have got the education to spot a good potential participation, investment, fundraising opportunity, a lot of ICOs attracted people that didn't have that education. And now they're learning, and now they've learned. And so the market is adapting to that. And people, like you were saying, asking the right questions now. We saw a lot of the wrong questions being asked. And a lot of the right teams are getting behind these projects, which is what we're seeing happening.
Makes a lot of sense.